from A+ Tutoring, and I was doing a brief review here about some different tutoring options parents have in the Cincinnati area. Options basically for test prep. So if you do a search here for something like Cincinnati ACT prep or test prep, you're going to get a few options. So I'll just try Cincinnati ACT test prep and we'll see what we get here. So the first on the list is Study Point. I've talked about them before as a company that is something like a Kaplan or a Princeton Review. You see that this is actually tutoring, which we'll notice is roughly 3 times more powerful than classroom preparation. And why would it be 3 times more powerful? Well, it's because of the individual effect. Students have a chance to have their weaknesses analyzed and their strengths confirmed. So you can do a lot more progress in a shorter amount of time, but it's really about the focus. If the tutor can be focused, the teacher can be focused, and you can make sure the student's focused, it makes a huge help. Of course, students still have to have the willpower to want to focus and get into those good habits of focusing. But that's what makes tutoring so much potentially more powerful, where classroom, the whole experience can be a big waste. Probably one of the best examples of that one is when I had modern philosophy in a class at Florida Atlantic University. And my teacher, she was a new one, and she gave out these very difficult or impossible tests. If I had her tutelage one-on-one, I would have done much better in that class. I was overextended at the time. I had a 3.93 grade point average in college, but after college I took this course, and I believe I failed the course. It was terrible how I couldn't really focus on the right material. It was too vague, but if she spent some real quality time with me, I'm sure I could have even got a B. So that's why people will pay something like $5 or $10 or $20 or maybe $30,000 for a coaching program to be successful, to improve their self and their goals. And you can buy a book for maybe $5 or $10 that has the same basic information, because a specialist can fine-tune things. So what is the quality then of these Study Point tutors? There's not much specific on the site about what they do. We do see that there is a 30-hour program. They get about 3 points and the results that they've measured, and that's great. 3 points is significant. I've seen students with my course get up to a 15-point increase. Now that's, you might say, even freakish to get a 15-point increase, but I'm shooting for a good 5 points each time. So my latest students have gotten something there like in the 5 to 10 point increase in their scores. So even get a 1 or 2 point increase is good, but 3 points, that's a good average. They talk about students in Harvard. I've seen that myself with my students: Harvard, Princeton, Yale, the Ivy League schools, and also a bunch of these other ones. And so I have a similar profile. I actually noticed a tutor at Study Point. So the one thing, though, that you might be missing is something like Study Point's curriculum, is that you don't know who you're going to get. You might get my friend who's a tutor there. You might get someone else. So there's not a lot of choices involved in this process. They want you to call and get their whole program. And in general, I do recommend for my students to finish a whole program, because it doesn't make sense to partially complete a house and make it brace itself against a hurricane. You want to get the whole kit and caboodle together to give yourself a chance for a maximum score on test day. So that's Study Point. They're going to charge something like $100 to $125 an hour, and you do have to get the whole 30 hours. So the next choice here, if we look at our different test prep options, we'll see is Ed Test Prep. So Ed Test Prep is quite different from Study Point. So with Ed Test Prep, this is really a class. You can see we're not talking, so if you do the math with Study Point, you're talking about approximately $3,800 or $3,750 would be a cost you would expect from their tutoring program. This is not a tutoring program. This is a class, and you can see it's less than 1/10 as much, and they even give you a free book. So if you want to go cheap, and that's your goal, you have Ed Test Prep out there. So you know what happens with these increases? Well, it's 11. You can get this course done in 11 hours, which is 3 Saturday classes. So again, while the class is 1/3 as effective as you would normally expect it to be compared to tutoring, this is 1/3 of the effectiveness you'd expect and 1/3 of the time. So you might expect 1/9 the effect of something like Study Point or Kaplan or A+ tutoring. And the other thing here that you want to watch out for is the hours. If you look at the math here, this is something like a 3.5-hour class, and it meets 3 times. So there's not much flexibility here as far as that's concerned. So there's the local element, which can be good there too. You get practice tests. So if you're about tests and taking tests, this can be a venue where you can enjoy that. So they don't have very big classes. That's another thing that can be beneficial. They give some decent test advice here on their site as well. But as far as the results are concerned, they don't really talk about results very much. You can look at their testimonials here. But you really shouldn't expect this to do the same thing as one-on-one tutoring would do. It really wouldn't be reasonable to give 1/3 of the time in a general classroom and have teachers be able to fulfill those needs. Nothing really about a diagnostic test either. I didn't really see that with Study Point myself when I was checking it out. So that's Ed Test Prep. That's really more of a classroom situation. So third, why don't we go ahead and check out the University of Cincinnati's program. So what you'd want to do is click on current courses here. And they have test preparation. You click on that. And then you can see the ACT is here at the top. It talks about this being an intensive class. And notice the man who teaches this, he's had 1,000 hours, which is significant. And he has an English background. So you may not expect as much in something like the math section or science section. And there's not really much in terms of details, only that it's pretty cheap. So again, this looks like it's a 5-hour long class on a Sunday. So if you want to get familiar with the test, this is a way to do it. And it is cheap. Some of my students take practice tests with other companies before they see me, but this isn't something that you'd want to compare to something like Study Point. So you would want to go purchase the book, Cracking the ACT, and go to this class as part of the continuing education curriculum at UC. I did something like myself for the GRE, but my teacher didn't know anything about the reading section or getting a good score on that. He just knew about the math. He didn't even teach us really about the logic section either in that particular case. So finally, if we go back now, we'll see that A+ tutoring is in a number 3 position. Now, I believe we have certain advantages that either tie or trump those situations. First of all, we do give that diagnostic test. So rather than having a long drawn out test that costs you up to $300 at other companies like Huntington, I just make it part of the session. So, you're looking at something like a maximum $100 in the first session, not just for the diagnostic test, but actually for the first tutoring session when you're learning the primary principles and seeing if you're really a good fit for your particular tutor. Secondly, I teach a systematic approach that I've had other tutors also use, and they've been able to get students to the top 1% themselves with this system. So it's a proven system, not just with me, but with other tutors to get dozens of students into the top 1%, not just on the ACT, but even the PSAT and SAT as well. So briefly, I teach 5 math steps, 6 reading steps, basically 4 grammar steps. There's 2 steps too about the structure that we want to break down. It's very memorization oriented in the beginning of our course. And then finally, the science is also 6 steps. So once we get our principles down, we get into our strategies and then into our tests. So I don't want to mix things up with some practice tests in the beginning, some practice problems, but really the tests we want to save until we have all of our principles down and our good habits down. So that's what we're working on. And I'm teaching students to get successful life skills. So there are definitely references I give and testimonials. You can check those out too. Been able to get students into the Ivy League and even up to 50 percentile increases in student scores. So my maximum increase on the ACT has been 15 points from an 8 to a 23. I've seen the 36s, 35s, 34s, 33s, 34s, 32s, and even recently, those increases of 6 or 7 points for my last 4 or 5 students. I've seen them go up by an average of maybe 5 points recently, even up to 7 or 8 point increase. So if you'd like to have any questions there that you want to get answered, you can definitely call me up. You can see my number here, that 513-939-9033. At this particular site, you can also use a contact form. This is constantly getting out of place. I don't like this website very much, but you can send me a message there too. And I am not charging for my consultation right now. If you mention this website's name, it's usually a $79 value, but I've been able to give students advice about which colleges to apply to, how to best maximize their scholarships, but I also offer individualized attention to that as well. So those are your tutoring options here for Greater Cincinnati. There's many of them, as I said. There's probably over 100 of them, but some of those things to think about as you're getting started here. This is ultimately $100,000 decision if you're talking about college. It could be getting into college or getting a scholarship to college or even millions of dollars over a student's career. So if you invest something like $1,000 or $2,000 in this, it's really a 1% investment into something that could cost into the hundreds of thousands of dollars over an academic career. So you want to choose wisely, find someone you're comfortable with, and see if your child is responding. That's why I can understand why parents may not want to pay for a whole 30-hour course up front. I recommend one, but students really need to be focused in doing their part, improving themselves, so you don't waste your money. So that's why I give opportunity for feedback, and I really just charge per session, so parents don't have to worry about that. So again, if you have any more questions, I'm here, 513-939-9033, and I'll try to put some links here in the video so you can get a better idea of what's really out there and how it can best help you. Mike Odasalva signing off. Have a great day.